Investigate! Viking, take! Yeah!
Well, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Royal Armouries and the Amphitheatre. I'm Keith, this is Richard. We're two of the people whose job it is to try and bring things to life for you at the museum. So what we just showed you is some examples of possible applications of weapons in use during the period of the Viking invasions of Saxon England. So we're talking around about the 700s to the 800s. Now, we're both very high status warriors, and you can tell that because of the amount of armour we've got. It's nothing compared to the amount of armour that soldiers from the later Middle Ages would have worn, or I should say noblemen in the later Middle Ages would have worn, but still what we've got here is more than most soldiers would have had on the battlefield. For a start, you've got beautifully designed helms made from panels and strips of metal that have been hammered into shape and then riveted shut. We're also wearing coats of mail, armour of thousands of interlinking iron rings, every single one of which was handmade and hand knitted together. These weren't cheap. They were extremely expensive, and only the most high status warriors on both the Saxon side, my side, the Viking side, Richard's side, would have been able to afford. On the other hand, for me as the Saxon, I've elected to use the simplest and most common weapon on the battlefield. And frankly, the weapon you would have seen used more often, at least in the first instance, than any other, even amongst high status warriors. And that was the spear. It's a plain wooden shaft surmounted by an iron or a steel head. And yet, of course, as you've already seen, it's got a lot of applications.
I, on the other hand, I've gone for a more classic combination of sword and shield. Now, if we're talking about wealth and status, you don't get any better than the sword. Contrary to popular belief, these were actually fairly uncommon on the battlefield, mainly because they were extremely expensive to make, very time consuming, and they were a signal of nobility and importance. If you imagine Keith's pointy stick there, it's mainly wood with only a little bit of metal, whereas this is all metal and would have been reserved only for people of great importance. It was also extremely devastating in the right hands. Again, there tends to be this myth that Viking and Saxon swords were sort of dull and blunt and the Japanese katana was the superior one. Not true. These are some of the finest swords ever made by man, and in the right hands, on an unarmed opponent, you could cleave a man straight from his collarbone all the way down to his waist in a single blow.
Try not to do that during the show.
I said right hands. I feel like they're in the wrong hands today, so don't worry, don't expect anything like that from me. But I can use these a very versatile way. So I've also got a shield, which, as you might expect, helps me to defend incoming attacks, but I can also use it offensively. I've got the edge of the shield here that I can use to strike my opponent, or I've got the boss here. It's a round shield-like piece of the shield that's there to protect my hand normally, but does very well at striking Saxons and sending them straight to the dentist.
All right, so what we'll do is we'll make what we were showing you earlier a bit clearer by working through some of the sections of the fight. So what we try to do here at the museum is where there's no first-hand evidence of the use of weapons, and this is much too early for first-hand evidence, nothing is written down at this period. There's very little allusion really to the way the weapons were used, even in the saga. You know, just glimpses, but nothing that lays it out move by move. So we will look at the individual weapons, look at the combat opportunities, and put our fights together like that. So, if the two of us are closing on one another, Richard is defending quite a bit of his body with his shield. That means I could go either under the shield for the leg, or I could go over the shield for the face. Now the face is quite well protected by the helmet. But the problem with going for the leg, although it seems like the better target, is any attempt by me to get under there is easily blocked, and I'm open in the most dangerous area of all, the whole of the high line. So I make the decision that I'm going to start the fight by going over the top. I'm just taking the exploratory jab. If I hit him in the face, that's great. Not, I'm going to draw him out.
Ooh. Well, regardless whether it's exploratory or not, I want to protect my pretty young face. I'm going to use the shield to knock Keith's spear out of the way, thus exposing his lower half. So with this, as sharp as it is, I'm still not going to get through that mail. I need to go where it isn't. So I'm going to make a thrust towards his groin.
So I step back, beating it out of the way, and now I use the butt end of the spear, slamming it over, try and stun him.
Oh. Once again, raising the shield up high to block. The thrust didn't work, so this time I'm going to go for a cutting attack, try and hack his hands off.
Whoa!
Oh, well, that didn't work, so I'm just going to go straight for his throat instead.
Wait! Now he's got me on the run, and that's not good, because you can't ever win a fight by continually being on the back foot. So before he can launch that third attack, and while I can just see the briefest of openings, I take another jab, again into the face, neck or throat.
Whoa. Knocking the spear to one side of the shield and making what's known as a tactical retreat.
And that's pretty good. If I can
Not
make him
running
retreat,
away.
you know, that works to my advantage. So now I decide to change up the way that I use the weapon. Until now, I've used it as you'd expect a spear to be used, jabbing and maybe beating with the butt end. But now I'm going to use it as though it was an enormous sword. And I'm going to try and take his legs out from underneath him, or slash them using the spear point by grabbing it right at the base, right at the butt end, and aiming for the legs.
Whoa, backing out of the way.
Doesn't work. I just use the momentum to keep it swinging to try and bash him across the helmet.
Whoa. Once again, using the shield to deflect that attack, and now going just for a straight up jab towards Keith's face.
Whoa. I beat that out of line. Again, whip the blade round, try and slice him on the back of the neck. The helmet he's wearing, he's got a fall of leather. That'll give him a certain amount of protection, but maybe not enough against this.
Whoa. That's a very powerful strike, so I'm going to use both sword and shield to deflect and make another tactical retreat. Not running away.
I like these tactical retreats, they're great. So now, we're going to show you how the shield can be used more offensively. Because what I do here is, I stretch out the spear and I'm kind of saying to him, come on, what are you going to do? Come and get me.
Well, I don't like the look of that spear, so I'm going to use the shield to once again knock the danger out of the way and just try and hack Keith's leg off.
Whoa, there, the shield's used offensively. But actually, that's what I was hoping he was going to do. I was drawing him out. So now both the weapons are on the same side of his body. He's open down the whole of this side. So what I'm going to do now is make an attack. Naughty boy. I'm going to make an attack which will bring the weapons to the other side, and then I'm going to attack him where he's open and he least expects it.
Whoa. 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 Once again, using both sword and shield to help deflect that very quick attack. What I can do from here is use the shield to keep the spear in place and then send the sword down the shaft of the spear, turning Keith's fingers into tiny little Keith's fingers shaped sausages. That's the intent. However, what tends to happen is that he just moves it out of the way. But this means I can wind up an overhead strike instead.
Now he's coming at me with a lot of power. Yes, I'm wearing a helm, but these helms weren't necessarily 100% effective because they were held together with rivets. They could be smashed open. So I bring the stave of the weapon up as a protector.
Well, from here, I can now use the shield offensively once again, striking Keith in the stomach, winding him, and then wind up another overhead attack.
Done. Now, when we did the fight earlier for you, we did in fact go beyond that point. As you see, at any point in the fight, it could have come to an end if one or other person made that fatal mistake, if they didn't get that block up or they didn't make that body avoidance. So the first time,
Yes, thank you for reminding me.
would you like another go?
Yes, I would, because I think you cheated, to be honest.
Cheated?
You never trust a Saxon, they're always cheating. Not like us noble Vikings. We don't do anything wrong.
All right, come on. How many are going to cheer for a Viking, the invader, the person who's stolen all your land, your animals, your women? How many people are going to cheer for the Viking?
Can I remind you, you are far up north, this is Viking territory.
Ladies and gentlemen, I'm jockey from the Saxons. I'm the home team, all right? How many people are cheering for the home team?
It's not going to be yours for much longer.
So we'll run the fight up to that point then.
I'll see if I can get out of that sticky situation.
Viking.
Right, talk amongst yourselves for a moment. You know, there's an expression that we still use today. We say pitched battle. Yeah? And most people think that a pitched battle was a battle where everybody just pitched in and whacked each other. But what it really means is a battle where both sides made camp beforehand so that they could get ready and then fight. They pitch camp and then they fought. And this is why, because actually when you're getting an armour, even fairly simple entry-level armour like this, it does take a little bit of time to get going. Right.
For some it does. Let's be having you.
There you go, ladies and gentlemen, a brief introduction to possible applications of sword, spear and shield from the period of the Viking invasion of Saxon England. Myself and Richard will be around for a few minutes now if you want to ask us any questions, have a photo opportunity. We can't allow you to handle the weapons at the moment while COVID is still lingering around. We'll give you a much, much closer look if you want. Not too close though, as you can imagine.